Hey everyone! In this video, I'm going to show you how to knit the head and tail of a lion. The techniques and stitches you'll need for this animal are stockinette, basic increases and decreases, mattress stitch for the seams, and fringe stitch for the mane and tail tip. You'll need about 3.5 ounces of DK or sport weight yarn, or about 3 to 4 times that if you're using a bulky weight yarn. Some darker yarn for the mane and tail tip, and about 1 yard of darker contrast yarn for the eyes and face details. Knitting needles that are at least 2 sizes smaller than what's recommended for the yarn you're using, a crochet hook for the mane and tail tip, some stuffing, scissors, a tapestry needle, and some type of row counter to keep track of which row you're on. With each of my animals, I like to include a list of that animal's attributes. Lions are social, loud, hungry, role-oriented, hardworking, protective, affectionate, and family-oriented. This video focuses only on the head and tail. All my animals use the same body and leg patterns, so I've made separate videos for those pieces. You can find links to these additional videos in the description. Okay, let's get started with the head. With darker contrast yarn, cast on 5 stitches for the nose, and be sure to leave a long tail for sewing with later. On row 1, switch to the main color and purl across. On row 2, knit 1 and then increase 1 all the way to the end, and then knit to the last stitch. For my increases, I like to knit into the stitch just below the stitch on my right needle, which is often called a make 1 increase. After the 4 increases, you should have 9 stitches. On row 3, purl across. On row 4, repeat the pattern of knit 1 and make 1 all the way across to the last stitch, and then knit it. When you're done, you should have 17 stitches. Purl across on row 5. On row 6, knit the first 7 and then repeat the pattern of knit 1 and make 1, do that 3 times, and knit the last 7 stitches. And that should give you 20 stitches. Rows 7 through 11 are just simple stockinette with no increases or decreases, So go ahead and purl on the wrong sides and knit on the right sides, and I'll meet you back here when you're ready to start row 12. On row 12, knit 7, make 1, and then repeat the pattern of knit 2 and make 1 3 times, and then knit the last 7. When you're done, you should have 24 stitches. Purl across on row 13, on row 14, knit 2, make 1, and then repeat the pattern of knit 4 and make 1 5 times, and knit the last 2. When you're done, you should have 30 stitches. Purl across on row 15, on row 16, knit 1, make 1, and then repeat the pattern of knit 4 and make 1 7 times, and knit the last one. When you're done, you should have 38 stitches. Purl across on row 17, on row 18, knit 7, make 1, knit 6 and make 1, knit 11 and make 1, knit 6 and make 1, and then knit the last 8. When you're done, you should have 42 stitches. Rows 19 through 24 are just simple stockinette again. So go ahead and purl on the wrong sides, end it on the right sides, and I'll meet you back here when you're ready to start row 25. On row 25, we start decreasing at the back of the head. Purl the first 2, and then purl 2 together. Then the pattern is purl 5 and purl 2 together. Do that to the last 3 stitches and purl those. When you're done, you should have 36. Knit across on row 26. On row 27, purl the first 2. Then the pattern is purl 2 together and purl 1. Do that across to the last stitch and purl it, and you should have 25 stitches. Knit across on row 28. On row 29, purl the first stitch and then purl 2 together across to the last 2 and purl those individually. You should have 14 stitches when you're done. Knit across on row 30. Row 31 is the last row. Purl the first stitch and then purl 2 together across to the last stitch and purl it. You should have 8 stitches when you're done. Don't cast off here. Instead, cut your yarn, leaving enough to sew the seam and to attach the head to the body later. Thread this tail onto a tapestry needle, and then carefully thread the tail back through each stitch on the needle. Just to be safe, I like to thread the tail through those same stitches once again. Pull tight to make a nice closure. Now sew the bottom head seam a little less than halfway from the back to the neck at the bottom of the head. Next, take the tail that you left at your cast-on edge, weave this through the cast-on stitches, and then sew up the head seam, leaving a wide enough opening at the bottom where you can stuff the head. That finishes up the main headpiece for now. We'll add the face details later when we're ready to assemble. Now let's knit the ears. I like to knit both ears at once, but I'm only knitting one for this video. If you'd like to knit both at once, just use the other end of your ball of yarn to cast on for the second ear. Start by casting on 8 in the body color. Purl across on row 1. On row 2, knit 1 and then knit 1 and make 1 across to the last stitch, and then knit it. When you're done, you should have 14 stitches. Purl across on row 3. On row 4, knit 2 and make 1. Do that across to the last 2 stitches, and then knit them. When you're done, you should have 20 stitches. Purl across on row 5. Knit across on row 6, on row 7, purl the first stitch and then follow the pattern of purl 1 and purl 2 together until you get to the last stitch and purl it. You should have 14 stitches now. Knit across on row 8, on row 9, purl the first stitch and then purl 2 together across to the last stitch and purl it, and you should have 8 stitches. Cut the yarn and thread it through the remaining stitches on the needle. Fold the ear in half and sew the side seam using mattress stitch. Follow these same instructions for the second ear. And now we're ready for the tail. Hold 2 strands together and use the knit cast on to cast on 20 stitches in the body color. Then turn and knit across, binding off as you go. Leave enough ends for sewing the tail to the body. We'll add some fringe stitches to the tip of the tail, and to do that, take 3 to 4 strands of a darker contrast yarn that are cut to the length of about 2.5 times longer than what you want the tip of the tail to be. Insert your crochet hook into the tip of the tail. Since we need to sew the tail to the body with the loose yarn, the tip of the tail is the end without the loose ends. Bend the strands of darker contrast yarn in half and grab them with the crochet hook at the bend, and then pull them through the stitch slightly at the tip of the tail. Then hook the remaining ends and pull them through the loop on your hook. Repeat this until the tip of your tail is as thick as you like it. That finishes the tail, and you can use the loose ends to sew the tail into position on the back near the widest part of the body. Now let's assemble the head. As I mentioned earlier, I have separate videos for the body, arms, legs, and general assembly, so here I'll only show how to assemble the head. Grab some scissors, a tapestry needle, some stuffing, and a scrap of darker yarn for the face details. Stuff the stuffing through the little hole you left at the bottom of the head, being careful not to add so much that it makes the stitches spread apart. And now let's add the eyes. For most animals, the eyes look best below the forehead and closer to the nose. A French knot works well for the eyes. Here's how you do a French knot. Pull the yarn out at the position where you want the eye. Then stick your needle back in through that same place and come back out 1 stitch away. Don't pull the yarn all the way through, but leave a little loop that you can stick your needle into. Pull the loop snug but not too tight against the needle, and then while holding it in place, wrap the yarn 5 to 6 times around the needle. More wraps will give you larger eyes, but more loops can also be difficult to manage and create an eye that has clean edges. Then hold the loop and wraps carefully with one hand as you pull the needle and yarn through them, creating a little circle of loops. To secure the little circle of loops into position, I like to add a couple more loops by stitching close near the bottom of the eye on the head and then coming back out through the center of the loops. I like to do this a few times until the eye feels secure on all sides. Follow these same steps to add the second eye. Sew the ears to the left and right sides of the top of the head, not too far back or too far forward. I like to start by holding them in position with my hands just to get an idea of where they look best. Then I use the yarn tails to sew a few stitches temporarily, and then I move back and forth between the two ears, sewing a little more on each as I go. Even though this can take some time, it's worth it in the end because the position of the eyes and ears makes a big difference. And now we can sew the rest of the bottom head seam. Find the original yarn that was used to sew the head seams, and then stuff all the other straggling ends inside the head. Then finish sewing the seams, leaving just an end of yarn for sewing the head to the body later. For the mane, you'll use a darker contrast yarn, and then follow the same steps that we used for the tip of the tail, and add fringe stitches all the way around the sides and back of the lion's head. Sew the head onto the neck of the body. When you're done, you can trim the ends of the fringe to create a full round mane. Then sew the tail onto the back near the widest part of the body. And here's how it looks when it's all done. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to my channel so you can get notified when I release new animal and clothing patterns. See you next time!